Welcome to the Wealthy Woman's Podcast, a podcast for high-achieving women who are great at making money but struggle to build wealth. You'll learn how to take control of your money, increase your net worth, and make more. Ladies, it's time to create a life with more money and more freedom. Let's dive in. Well, hello there. Welcome back. I hope you all are having a fabulous week. It is beautiful where I am, and I hope you are enjoying some amazing weather wherever you are. So today we're going to talk about something that I'm pretty passionate about, so I might get a little fired up today, but I'm going to try to keep it calm, okay? So here is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about cutting expenses and why I think you should stop focusing on cutting expenses. Here's the thing. I know that so many financial gurus point to cutting expenses as a way to really get your money under control, right? If you want to get out of debt, guess what? You need to cut expenses. If you want to save more, you better cut some expenses. If you want to invest more, you better get those scissors out and start cutting that cable and cutting those lattes, right? I mean, we hear it all the time. It is the solution for money management. And here's what I want you to know about this. This is why I'm going to get fired up, because this narrative is only directed towards women. Men are never told to stop buying lattes. Men are never told to stop buying expensive watches, right? We're told to stop shopping so much, stop buying lattes, stop buying so many shoes and handbags, and all of our purchases are just frivolous. But men are never told that. Men are told to go out in the world and conquer it, make as much money as possible, become a really savvy investor, and just conquer the world. While women are told to coupon and cut expenses and to be a good manager of the money that you have, which of course you want to manage the money that you have well, but there's so much more to it. And we are told time and time again to just focus on cutting expenses. And I am here to tell you to stop focusing on cutting expenses. There are so many other places that your brain's energy should be focused on. And I want you to know this, because when you start to focus on other things, other wealth building measures, you'll start to see even better results with your money. So what we're going to talk about today is what to do instead. So I know, I'm ranting and I'm saying stop cutting expenses, but I have to also give you alternatives, right? So I'm going to share with you other things you can do instead of cutting expenses that will allow you to really jumpstart your wealth building efforts, that will allow you to hit your financial goals. But cutting expenses and solely focusing on that is not going to get you to where you want to go. So, I paid off over $200,000 worth of debt, and I did not get there by just merely cutting expenses. I did other things. I'm going to share those things with you right now. Now, let's talk about the 3 things you should do instead. Number 1, so instead of cutting your expenses, I teach my clients inside of the Wealthy Woman's Academy how to actually optimize their expenses. So instead of just blindly cutting things out of your life, I want you to optimize them instead. And so this is how you do that. So inside the Wealthy Woman's Academy, which is my signature money coaching program, you're invited to join if you really want to jumpstart your wealth building efforts and you want my support and my help and all of the things that I share on the podcast times 20. You'll get that inside of the Wealthy Woman's Academy. But one of the things I teach is something called a spending audit. So one of the first things I have my clients do is to do a spending audit where they actually look back 1 month into the past and look at how they spent their money. And I want them to do that from a place of neutrality, where they're not beating themselves up about their purchases. They're not feeling shameful about their purchases. I just want them to look and see, gain awareness around where their money has gone. And so once people do that, then they get to decide, oh my, I no longer want to spend that much on this thing, right? And that's how you optimize your expenses. You do it by becoming aware, by waking up to what you're actually doing with your money. So many times we are blindly spending our money. We're blindly using our money and we have no idea where it goes. So when you do something like a spending audit, you are awakened to all that you've been spending your money on. And I hear it all the time. I don't know where all my money goes. That's what people say all the time. And it's because you're not paying attention. And looking back and doing a spending audit is a great way to really see what you've been doing with your money. And so when you do that, if you do not like what you see, guess what? You can do something about it. But that's only if you want to. See, that's the huge difference. When financial gurus tell you to just cut expenses, they're not taking into account your particular lifestyle values. They're not taking into account what's really important to you. A lot of times they'll tell you to cut out dinners out, cut out going out to eat, cut out vacations, cut out fancy foods from the grocery store, right? And they're just telling you to blindly cut these things when they don't really understand what your true values are. Maybe having a date night with your husband once or twice a month is super important to your relationship. Maybe that is the way you all connect. Maybe that is the way that you all feel closer to one another. And so that is something that is very valuable for you. Maybe family happiness is something that's super important to you. And being able to take your kids on outings during the weekends, that's something you want to spend your money on. But when you're told to blindly cut expenses, that really does limit you from doing things that are really important to you. So again, if you're looking at your spending and you notice, I do not want to spend my money like this. This is not valuable to me. Having all of these streaming services that I don't use, this is not valuable to me. I no longer want to spend my money this way. That is how you optimize your expenses. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients, she did a spending audit and she noticed that she had signed up for a free trial for some software. And the trial lasted for 30 days. It was free for an entire month. But then after that, it was $120 a month. She was paying that $120 a month for over a year and did not realize it until she did this spending audit. And she realized that she was doing it. And of course, she wanted to optimize that and get rid of it because she wasn't even using the software. She forgot that she signed up for the free trial. And for over an entire year, she was paying $120 a month. So of course, that is something you definitely want to get rid of because you're not using it. It's not important to you. You're not getting any value out of it. So go ahead and cut it, but you're doing it from a place of, this is not valuable to me. I am not using this. I am going to get rid of it. Versus someone just telling you that you need to cut it out. Another thing that many of my clients find is similar to this, but it's not at such a big scale. It's just unused subscription services. So maybe they did sign up for Hulu and Disney Plus and Netflix and HBO Max and Peacock, all those things. Sometimes we sign up for these things just because a really great movie is coming out. So here's a side note. I am a huge fan of The Best Man. Huge fan. And so this past holiday season, they released an entire series on Peacock. And so I had to get Peacock just for that. But I made sure that I canceled it because there was nothing else for me to watch on Peacock but that. So that's just a side note. When I mentioned Peacock, I thought of The Best Man. But anyway, so things like that. So you may have done the same thing. You may have subscribed to Peacock just so you can watch The Best Man series. And you might be like, oh my gosh, I'm still paying for this and I never even use it. And if that is the case, go ahead and get rid of it. And that is how you optimize your expenses. Another thing you may notice is that maybe you're eating out often and maybe you're doing it because you are tired, you're not really getting a lot of value out of it. Maybe you're not planning your meals and you add up how much you're spending on eating out and you're just like, you know what? I do enjoy a nice dinner out, but I do not want to spend this much money. And maybe you notice that a lot of it is just drive-through food. It's not even a nice dinner that you're having. You're just, tired. So you drive through the Chick-fil-A and you pick up dinner that way. And you really don't want to do that. Right? Maybe you'll notice that when you do your spending audit, and then you get to make a decision. Okay, maybe I do want to eat out once a week, but I'm going to make sure that I'm planning some meals that I can, cook and maybe make them last for a couple days. So I'm not in the kitchen all the time, but I'm also not just spending a lot of money on eating out and at the grocery store. So when you look at those things and you do that spending audit, it just brings a lot of awareness to you. And then you get to make really smart decisions around what you want to do moving forward without the guilt, without the shame, and without somebody telling you what you need to do. It's just you telling yourself what you want to do with your money. So the second thing you can do instead of just blindly cutting expenses is to just be intentional. So let's say you've already done that spending audit and you found some areas where you really do want to change. Let's say you notice that you have 5 different streaming services and you don't use any of them. Like you really don't use any of them. And you're just like, you know what? This is $100. Maybe you add it up and it's $100 and you're just like, no, I don't want to spend $100 a month on services that I don't use. A lot of times we'll make those decisions, but then we don't act on them. So that's the other thing you want to do, is to be intentional about what you're going to do. So if you find things that you don't like, be intentional and do something about it. Set a timer on your phone that will say, okay, tomorrow at 6 p.m., once everything's done, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go online and I'm going to cancel all those services. Or maybe you find that you're spending way too much on drive-through food and you don't want to do that anymore. So instead of just waiting until the evening to decide what you're going to eat, maybe Sunday evening or Saturday morning, you sit down and think about, what are we going to eat this week? And then how can I make it easy on myself? And then go ahead and either order your groceries, have them delivered that will let you cook the meals that you want to cook. Or if you go to the grocery store, which I do not do anymore, but if you still go to the grocery store, that is totally fine. Go to the grocery store and buy those things so that you can prepare those meals. Make it easy on yourself. Don't try to, prepare 5-course meals if you are used to picking up takeout every evening. Maybe make some crock pot meals. Maybe make a couple dishes that are like super easy. Maybe it takes you a couple minutes to just throw some things in the oven. Be intentional about those things and plan for it so that when the time comes, you have everything you need at home to make those things and you get to save that money. You get to optimize your expenses. Only though, if you find that you're doing or spending more than you really want to in that area. And here's another thing that I always have my clients do, and that is to shop your insurance, your car insurance. That is one area where a lot of my clients overspend because they keep the same car insurance year after year after year without shopping it. And so when you're doing your spending audit, you might notice, okay, I'm spending this much on my auto. If that seems like, maybe there are better rates out there, that might be another thing you set aside time to shop your insurance rates, because sometimes you can save thousands of dollars a year just by making a simple phone call and saying, hey, I am thinking about leaving. Can you give me a better rate? Or maybe even just calling another company and saying, hey, can you beat this? I've had clients literally save over $1,000 a year just by changing who they get their car insurance through. So that's another way of just being intentional. Once you see things that you want to change, go ahead and change it, because that is how you're going to actually optimize the expenses that you've uncovered, the expenses that you've uncovered that you no longer want to spend on. The best way to do that is to make sure you actually follow through with canceling things or negotiating lower rates or planning your meals or whatever it is that you need to do so that you actually can optimize those expenses. And here's a side note before I go on to the next one, is that don't let your brain tell you that you don't have time or that you'll do it later, because when you do that, you likely won't. ever get to it. And so you will never reap the benefits of doing the exercises I'm telling you to do right now, right? Because if you don't act on it, it's never going to give you the benefits that you're looking for. So make sure that you don't allow your brain to tell you, I don't have time. That's why one of the first things I said was to actually set a time on your calendar to make these things happen. Okay, so now we're on to the third thing you can do to optimize your expenses, and that is focus on earning more. Remember at the very beginning of today's episode, I mentioned that women are taught to cut back and men are taught to go out and conquer the world. Go out and make as much money as you can. Go out and multiply that money. And women were taught something totally different. And so I think women should be taught the same thing as men. So that's what I'm going to do right now. We're going to talk about why it's so important to focus on earning more versus focusing on cutting back. So here's what I want you to know. What you focus on expands, right? What you focus on expands. And our brains are not very good at multitasking. So if your focus is primarily on cutting expenses, then you can't really also focus on earning more. So that's why I say spend one evening optimizing your expenses and then follow through with those things and then turn your focus to earning more, because you can earn way more money than you can ever cut. There's only so much you can cut from your budget. There's only so much you can cut from your life, right? And that is why I am doing this episode, because I know this is what we're taught, right? And I want you to know that there is a different way. Focusing on earning more is way more lucrative than focusing on cutting your expenses. And when we just focus on cutting expenses, we miss out on all the possibilities available to us where we can earn more with our God-given talents and gifts. Our earning potential as humans is actually unlimited, right? I never even knew this until recently. And I learned this from my teacher, Brooke Castillo. She's the owner of the Life Coach School, and I am certified through that school. And when I heard her say this, it blew my mind, because nobody ever told me that my earning potential as a human being is actually unlimited. But when I really started to think about it, I started to believe it, because it is true. There is no limit to how much a human being can earn. The only thing that limits our earning is our thinking, our imagination, what we believe is possible for us. Those are the only limits that we have. You know, we've been taught that there are income boxes. And if you're a teacher, you can make this much. And if you're a doctor, you can make this much. And if you're a factory worker, you can make this much. But the truth is, we do not have to stay inside of those boxes that society tries to put us in. I'll give you a great example of this. So I know of a lady who was a third grade teacher in the public school system, and she was super, super good at helping those little third graders learn how to read. She was like the best at it. So good that parents were begging for their kiddos to be in her class, right? And then the principal wanted her to share her strategies with all of the other teachers in the building. And then the superintendent wanted her to share her strategies with all the teachers in the school district. So she was really good. So she decided that she wanted all teachers to know this strategy. So she created this little workshop. It was a digital workshop. She pre-recorded it and she sold it to teachers for like $20. And the teachers loved it. They ate it up. They wanted more. And so she decided, okay, every month I'll release a new strategy that you can teach, and I'll break those strategies down even more so that you can really use them with your students. And she was just charging them like $20 a month. And do you know that she ended up becoming a millionaire because of her value, the value she was giving out to the world? She was using her God-given gifts and talents to serve not only her students, but then other students. And now like all over the world, her strategies are being used, all because she decided to believe that she could do something more than just teach in a classroom, right? So that is what I mean by society tells us, oh, teachers can only make this much. But this woman blew the roof off of what society tells us that teachers can make, right? And you can do the same thing. I know doctors, first of all, we think of doctors as already, being high income earners, and they are. But I know doctors who are making way more than even the top medical fields, like these are primary care doctors, and they're making more than anesthesiologists, more than surgeons, because they are taking their God-given skills and talents, and they're using it to serve the world, not just one patient at a time. They're using it to serve the world. They're making memberships for people to be able to lose weight and to have, a different relationship with food or a different relationship with their money. So you are not limited by your educational level. You're not limited by your job title. You're not limited by your sex or your race or your gender or any of that. You are not limited by that. The only thing you're limited by is your thinking. And this is why I wanted to do this episode again, is because women are not taught this. We are taught to coupon and to stop spending so much. But if we could shift our focus to actually earning more, we would be in way more wealthier situations than we're in now. So another concept that I heard a lot, especially growing up, is like, I'm just trying to get my piece of the pie, right? And so we're taught that there's this one pie, right, of money, and everybody's just trying to get a slice. And what if that's just not true? What if we all get our own pie? And not only do we get our own pie, we get to make that pie as big or as small as we want it. And we get to also decide if we want to make more pies. What if we all have the ingredients to not only have the one pie we were given, but make more? Right? That is the way I would love for you to all to begin thinking. Like, you can make your pie as big as you want. And actually, there's a strategy to doing this, and I'm going to share it in next week's episode, which will end up being episode number 15. So you definitely want to listen to it, where I'm going to talk about how do you make your income pie bigger? What are the secrets? What are the strategies you need to be implementing so that you can earn more, so that your income can break free of all the constraints that you and even society has put on it? And here's the cool thing, and we're going to close with this. When we begin thinking like this, instead of worrying about a $5 latte, the sky is truly the limit, right? And so again, next week, I'm going to go even deeper into how you can earn more. And it has nothing to do with your educational level. It has nothing to do with your job title. I'm not going to tell you need to go back and get your master's or your PhD. Believe me, that is not what I'm going to talk about. But you do want to tune in, share it with your girlfriends, share this episode with your girlfriends. More women need to hear this message so that we can all start building wealth, so that we can create the financial security and control that we want to have around money. We want to live lives full of peace, full of fun, and full of joy, and full of freedom. And the only way we're really going to get to do that is if we get our money right, if we get our money under control and start to really build wealth. So let's go ahead and recap what we talked about today. We first started off by talking about why I disagree with all the financial gurus about, the answer to everything money related is to cut expenses, right? We talked about how this narrative is only really aimed at women and how men are taught to go out and conquer the world. And I want us ladies to start doing the same thing. We talked about how you can optimize your expenses though, because again, we don't want to throw money away. We don't want to waste money. We do not want to be paying for things that we don't get value from or that we're not using. So we talked about how to do that, how to become aware of what you're spending by doing a spending audit, and then how to intentionally change what you do not like and actually making those decisions and actually following through with them. So if you need to make some phone calls or jump on the internet and cancel some things, make sure you carve out time to do that and don't let your brain tell you that you don't have time, because you do have time. And then finally, we talked about the importance of focusing on earning more, because that is way more lucrative than focusing on cutting expenses. There are only so many things you can cut from your financial budget, right? But there's so much more you can add. Okay? I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Hey, before you go, if you're ready to create a life with more money and more freedom, then you're invited to join the Wealthy Woman's Academy, my signature coaching program where you'll learn how to take control of your money and build wealth without sacrificing your lifestyle. To get started, head on over to JermaineFoley.com. That's Jermaine with a G, Foley.com. See you there.